What if I told you that right now, as you're watching this video, someone could be living in your house without you knowing? What if I told you that the person you trust most might not be who they say they are? These aren't made-up stories. These are real experiences from real people who came face to face with pure evil. Story 1. The Dead Floor. Sarah Martinez was 28 years old and she loved being a nurse. She worked at Cincinnati General Hospital, one of the biggest hospitals in Ohio. Sarah always took the night shift because it paid more money, and she needed that extra cash to pay off her student loans. But there was one thing about the night shift that everyone warned her about: the fourth floor. Nobody called it by its real name anymore. Everyone just called it the dead floor. Not because people died there, but because it was completely empty. 3 years ago, the hospital said they were going to fix it up and make it better, but they ran out of money, so they just left it. Empty rooms, empty halls, broken lights that flickered on and off. But here's the thing that nobody wanted to talk about. Sometimes, nurses had to go through the dead floor to get supplies from the old storage room. It was the only way to get certain medical equipment that they kept there. On October 13th, 2019, it was Sarah's turn to get supplies. She didn't want to go. Her stomach felt sick just thinking about it. But they needed IV bags, and she was the newest nurse, so she had no choice. She took the elevator to the fourth floor at 2:30 in the morning. When the doors opened, cold air hit her face. It was freezing up there like walking into a refrigerator. Her breath came out in little white clouds. The hallway stretched out in front of her, long and dark. Half the lights were broken. The ones that worked kept flickering, making shadows dance on the walls. Sarah walked fast, her white shoes making loud sounds on the floor. Click-clack, click-clack, click-clack. The sound bounced off the walls and came back to her, making it sound like someone else was walking too. Then she heard it. Footsteps that weren't hers. They sounded wet, like someone walking in shoes full of water. Squish, squash, squish, squash. Sarah stopped walking. The wet footsteps took 2 more steps, then stopped too. Her heart was beating so fast she thought it might jump out of her chest. She could feel sweat on her forehead even though it was freezing cold. "Hello?" Sarah called out. Her voice shook. "Is someone there?" "This floor is closed." "You're not supposed to be here." Nothing, just silence, but not normal silence. It was the kind of silence that felt heavy, like something was holding its breath, waiting. Sarah started walking again, faster now. The wet footsteps followed her, matching her speed exactly. She walked faster. They walked faster. She started running. Behind her, those wet footsteps turned into wet, slapping sounds, like bare feet running through puddles of water. The sound got closer and closer. Sarah ran as fast as she could. The storage room was just ahead. She grabbed the door handle and pulled. Thank God it opened. She ran inside and slammed the door shut, turning the lock. Her hands were shaking so bad she could barely hold her phone. She tried to call security, but her phone was dead. Completely black screen. That was impossible. It was fully charged when she started her shift. The lights in the storage room started to flicker. On, off, on, off. In the moments of darkness, Sarah heard breathing. Not her breathing. Someone else's breathing. It sounded wet and thick, like someone trying to breathe with water in their lungs. Then she saw the shadow under the door. But it wasn't a normal shadow. It moved like water, flowing under the door crack, spreading across the floor like spilled black paint. Sarah backed up against the wall. Boxes of medical supplies crashed to the floor. The shadow started to rise up from the floor, taking shape. First feet, then legs, then a body. The lights went out completely. Pure darkness. Sarah couldn't see anything, but she could hear the breathing getting closer. She could smell something awful. It smelled like a swimming pool that nobody had cleaned in years. Mixed with the smell of something rotting. Something cold and wet touched her face. It felt like a dead fish, cold and slimy. Sarah screamed. She grabbed her small flashlight from her pocket and turned it on. The beam of light showed her something that still gives her nightmares. A man was standing right in front of her, so close she could see the pores in his skin. But his skin was wrong. It was white like paper, and she could see blue veins underneath, like looking through thin ice. He was wearing a hospital gown that was soaking wet, dripping water that wasn't really there. When the water hit the floor, it disappeared, but his eyes were the worst part. They were completely white. No black pupils, no colored iris. Just white balls in his head, staring at her without really seeing. The man opened his mouth. Water poured out like someone had turned on a faucet. So much water, but it disappeared as soon as it hit the floor. When he spoke, his voice sounded like he was drowning, talking underwater. Room 4, 1, 3, he gurgled. Help me, please, help me. Sarah didn't think. She just ran. She hit the door with her shoulder as hard as she could. The lock broke and the door flew open. She ran down that dark hallway faster than she had ever run in her life. Behind her, those wet footsteps chased her. They were getting closer. She could hear the water splashing, even though the floor behind her was completely dry. The elevator was too far. She ran for the stairs. Down, 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 taking 3 steps at a time. She could hear those wet feet on the stairs above her, getting closer with every second. She burst through the door on the first floor and ran straight to the security office. The security guard looked at her like she was crazy. Sarah was crying, shaking, her hair a mess. She tried to tell him what happened, but the words came out all wrong. He called 2 more guards and they went up to check the 4th floor. Sarah went with them, even though every part of her body screamed at her to run away. When they got to the 4th floor, everything was normal. The lights worked perfectly. There was no water anywhere, no wet footprints. The storage room door wasn't broken. It was locked, just like it should be. The security guards started to think Sarah had been seeing things. Maybe she was too tired. Maybe she had been working too many shifts, but Sarah knew what she had seen. And that night, when she got home, she looked up the hospital records on her computer. What she found made her quit her job the next day. Room 413 had been closed since 1987. A patient named Michael Brennan had been in that room. He was 32 years old, same age as Sarah's brother. On November 3rd, 1987, during the night shift, a water pipe in the ceiling burst. Water poured into room 413 like a waterfall. Michael tried to call for help, but his call button was broken. He screamed and screamed, but the nurse who was supposed to be watching him was in the supply room, getting supplies. The same supply room where Sarah had hidden. Michael Brennan drowned in his hospital bed. He died alone, calling for help that never came. The nurse found him 3 hours later, floating in 4 feet of water. The hospital covered it up. They paid his family to keep quiet. They closed room 413 and never opened it again. Sarah moved to California the next week. She got a job as a teacher. No more nursing, no more night shifts, no more hospitals. But sometimes, when it rains, she hears those wet footsteps following her. And sometimes, late at night, she hears that drowning voice whisper in her ear, "Why didn't you help me? Why didn't anyone help me?" She knows that one day Michael Brennan will find her again, because she was in that supply room, just like the nurse who let him die. And maybe, just maybe, that's what he's really looking for. Not help, but revenge. Story 2. The Stranger in My House. Tom Richardson was 35 years old and had just bought his first house. It was a beautiful old Victorian house in Portland, Oregon, built in 1892. 3 stories tall, with a big porch and even a tower room. Tom couldn't believe how cheap it was. The family selling it practically gave it away. They seemed scared, always looking over their shoulders, wanting to leave as fast as possible. But Tom didn't care. He was just happy to finally own a home. The first month was perfect. Tom loved everything about the house. The old wooden floors that creaked when you walked on them. The big windows that let in lots of light. The huge attic that he planned to turn into an office. Life was good. Then the noises started. It was just scratching at first. Late at night, Tom would hear scratching sounds coming from above his bedroom. In the attic. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Like a cat sharpening its claws, but louder. Tom figured it was probably mice or maybe squirrels that got in through a hole in the roof. He bought some mouse traps and climbed up to the attic. He set 10 traps all around the attic and went back downstairs. The next morning, he went to check them. The traps were gone. Not empty, not broken. Gone. Like they had never been there at all. That was weird, but Tom told himself that maybe it was raccoons. Raccoons are smart. They can pick up traps and move them. So he bought bigger traps, the kind you use for raccoons. He set them up and waited. The next morning, those traps were gone too. Now Tom was getting worried. What kind of animal could take heavy metal traps and make them disappear? He decided to buy a camera. one of those wildlife cameras that hunters use. He set it up in the attic, pointing at where he heard the most scratching. That night, the scratching was louder than ever. And then, at exactly 3 a.m, Tom heard something that made his blood turn to ice. A voice, coming from the attic, singing. It was a man's voice, soft and gentle, singing a children's song. Ring around the rosy, pocket full of posies, ashes, ashes, we all fall down. Tom sat up in bed, his heart pounding. The singing continued for 5 minutes, then stopped. Then he heard footsteps above him. Slow, heavy footsteps, walking from one end of the attic to the other. Tom grabbed his baseball bat and his phone. He called 911 and whispered that someone was in his house. The operator told him to leave the house immediately and wait outside for the police. But Tom was angry now. This was his house. He had worked so hard to buy it. He wasn't going to let some crazy person scare him away. He pulled down the attic stairs and climbed up slowly, his bat ready. He turned on the light. The attic was empty. Completely empty. No person, no animal, nothing. Even the camera he had set up was gone. The police arrived 10 minutes later. They searched the whole house, the attic, the basement, even the tower room. They found nothing. No signs of anyone breaking in. No footprints, no fingerprints, nothing. They told Tom he was probably just stressed from the move. Maybe he dreamed it, but Tom knew what he heard. And the next night, it happened again. Scratching, then singing, then footsteps. This time Tom recorded it on his phone. When he played it back, all he heard was static. On the third night, Tom had a plan. He pretended to go to sleep, but really he was wide awake, waiting. At 3 a.m, he heard the attic door open. But that was impossible. He had put a padlock on it from the outside. He heard footsteps coming down the attic stairs. Slow, careful footsteps. Tom held his breath and kept his eyes almost closed, peeking through his eyelashes. His bedroom door opened slowly. A man walked in. But calling him a man wasn't quite right. He was too thin, like someone had stretched a normal person until they were 7 feet tall. His arms were too long, hanging down past his knees. His fingers had too many joints, bending in ways that fingers shouldn't bend. The thin man stood at the foot of Tom's bed, watching him. Tom could feel those eyes staring at him, studying him. The man stood there for 30 minutes, not moving, just watching. Then he spoke, and his voice sounded like 2 voices talking at the same time, one high and one low. "You're in my bed, Tom. You're in my house. I've been here so much longer than you. But that's okay. We can share. We can be roommates. You'll never see me if you don't want to. I'll be quiet. I'll be good. I've been practicing being good for so long." The thin man reached out with one of those 2 long arms. His fingers stretched toward Tom's face. Tom couldn't take it anymore. He jumped up and swung the bat as hard as he could. It hit something solid. The thin man screamed, but it didn't sound like a human scream. It sounded like metal scraping against metal mixed with the cry of an injured animal. Tom kept swinging and swinging. The thin man ran, moving in a weird, jerky way, like a spider missing half its legs. He went up the walls. Yes, up the walls, crawling on the ceiling, and disappeared into a vent that was way too small for a person to fit through. Tom ran out of the house and didn't stop running until he reached his neighbor's house. He banged on their door until they let him in. He called the police again. This time they brought more officers and even a dog unit. What they found in Tom's house still doesn't make sense. In the attic, behind a wall that looked solid, they found a small room. Someone had been living in that room for a very long time. There were notebooks filled with writing, thousands of pages. The writing talked about all the families who had lived in the house over the years. Every family was described in detail. What they ate for breakfast, what TV shows they watched, when they went to sleep. The earliest notebook was dated 1923. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the photos. Hundreds of photos of people sleeping, eating, watching TV, all taken from inside the house. Photos of Tom sleeping. Photos of Tom in the shower. Photos of Tom that were taken from impossible angles, like from inside the walls. The police found more hidden rooms. Small spaces between the walls. Above the ceilings, under the floors. A whole network of secret passages that connected every room in the house. Someone had been living in those spaces, moving through the house like a ghost, watching everyone who lived there. They never found the thin man. But they found hair that wasn't human, They found fingerprints with too many fingers. They found footprints that were human-shaped but wrong, with toes that were too long and bent the wrong way. Tom moved out that same day. He stayed in a hotel for a month, then found an apartment in a new building with thin walls where you could hear everything your neighbors did. He liked that. He liked knowing that there were no secret spaces, no room for someone to hide. The house in Portland is still for sale. The price keeps dropping, but nobody wants to buy it. The realtor doesn't mention the scratching sounds that new buyers hear during tours, or the singing at 3 a.m, or the fact that sometimes, just sometimes, people see a face in the attic window. A thin face with too many teeth, watching the street below, waiting for the next family to move in. Tom still has nightmares about the thin man. In his dreams, he's back in that house, in that bed, and the thin man is standing over him saying, "We could have been such good friends, Tom, such good roommates, forever and ever and ever." And sometimes, when Tom wakes up from those nightmares, he finds things moved in his apartment, small things. A cup in a different place, a book open to a different page, his laptop turned on when he knows he turned it off. He tells himself it's his imagination. He tells himself he's safe now, but deep down he knows the truth. The thin man followed him. The thin man is still watching, and one day, when Tom least expects it, he'll wake up to find that thin face inches from his own, smiling with too many teeth, ready to be roommates again. Story 3. The Desert Highway. Jennifer Park was 29 years old and worked as a real estate agent in Las Vegas. She had just spent the weekend visiting her parents in Salt Lake City, Utah. It was a long drive, about 6 hours through the desert, but Jennifer liked driving. It gave her time to think, to listen to music, to be alone with her thoughts. She left her parents' house at 8 in the evening, planning to drive through the night to avoid the desert heat. By 2 in the morning, she was on Highway 93 in the middle of nowhere. She hadn't seen another car for over an hour. It was just her, the road, and miles of empty desert on both sides. That's when she saw him. A man was standing on the side of the road. He was wearing a nice suit, like he had just come from a business meeting. But it was 2 in the morning, in the middle of the desert, 50 miles from the nearest town. He had his thumb out, trying to hitchhike. Jennifer's first thought was to keep driving. You don't pick up strangers in the middle of the night, especially not in the middle of nowhere. But as her headlights lit up his face, she saw something that made her slow down. The man looked terrified. Not dangerous, not scary, but scared. His eyes were wide, and he kept looking behind him like something was chasing him. Jennifer drove past him, but something made her look in her mirror. The man had fallen to his knees in the road. She could see him in her red taillights, and it looked like he was crying. Against every smart thought in her head, Jennifer stopped the car about 100 feet down the road. She watched in her mirror as the man got up and started running toward her car. As he got closer, she could see that his suit was ripped and dirty. His white shirt had dark stains on it, and he wasn't wearing shoes. His feet were bleeding, leaving bloody footprints on the road. Jennifer only rolled down her window a tiny bit. "Are you okay?" she asked. The man's face was covered in sweat and dirt. "Please," he said, and his voice was shaking. "Please help me. My car broke down. They're coming. We need to leave right now. Please, who's coming?" Jennifer asked. Her hand was on the gear shift, ready to drive away if she needed to. "There's no time to explain. Please, I'm begging you. I have money. I'll give you $5,000 cash right now if you just drive." "Please!" Jennifer looked in her mirrors. The road behind them was empty. The desert was silent. But something about the man's fear felt real. It wasn't acting. This man was truly terrified of something. "Get in," she said, unlocking the back door. Quickly, the man dove into the back seat and slammed the door. "Drive, please, just drive as fast as you can." Jennifer hit the gas and the car jumped forward. She pushed it up to 90 miles per hour, which was dangerous on the dark desert road. But the man's fear was contagious. She kept checking her mirrors, but the road behind them stayed dark and empty. "What's your name?" she asked after they had driven about 5 miles. "Robert," the man said. He was still breathing hard. "Robert Chen, thank you. Thank you so much. You saved my life. You really saved my life. What happened to you? Where's your car?" Robert was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "You're not going to believe me." "Nobody would believe me." "Try me," Jennifer said. "I just picked up a bloody barefoot stranger in a suit in the middle of the desert at 2 a.m. I'll believe anything at this point." Robert took a deep breath. "I was driving back from a conference in Salt Lake. My company makes medical equipment, and we had a big presentation. I was driving this same road about an hour ago when my car started making weird noises. The engine was knocking and I could smell something burning, so I pulled over." He paused, and Jennifer could see in the mirror that he was shaking. "When I got out to look at the engine, there were already people there, standing around my car. In the middle of the desert, in the middle of the night, there were 4 people just standing around my car. A man, a woman, and 2 kids. A boy and a girl, maybe 10 years old. What did they want?" Jennifer asked. "That's the thing." They were all smiling. All 4 of them had the exact same smile. Not normal smiles. Their smiles were too wide, like someone had cut their faces from ear to ear. And their eyes were completely black. Not just the pupils, but the whole eye, like looking into holes in their heads. Jennifer felt cold despite the warm desert air coming through the vents. Robert continued. "They asked if I could give them a ride. But they all spoke at the same time, in the same voice. 4 mouths moving, but one voice coming out. They said, 'Our car broke down. We need a ride. Let us in your car.' I told them my car was broken too, that I couldn't help them. The man, or the thing that looked like a man, said he could fix my car. He reached toward my engine and his arm. It stretched, like it was made of rubber or something. His arm stretched 5 feet and went into my engine without opening the hood. Just passed right through the metal like it wasn't there." "What did you do?" Jennifer asked, gripping the steering wheel tighter. "I ran. I just turned and ran into the desert. They didn't chase me at first. They just stood there, watching me run, still smiling those horrible smiles. I ran for maybe 2 minutes before I heard them behind me. But it wasn't footsteps. It was a dragging sound, like something wet being pulled across the sand. And they were calling my name. 'Robert,' they said. 'Come back, Robert. We just want to be friends, Robert.' But they knew my name." "How did they know my name?" Jennifer's mouth was dry. She reached for her water bottle and took a sip. "How far back did you say your car was?" "Maybe 10 miles from where you picked me up." Jennifer looked at her odometer. They had driven about 15 miles since picking up Robert. She started to relax a little. Whatever those things were, they were far behind them now. Then she saw them. 4 figures standing in the middle of the road ahead. A man, a woman, 2 children. Just standing there, not moving, right in the middle of the highway. "Oh God," Robert whispered from the back seat. "How did they get ahead of us? How is that possible?" Jennifer slammed on the brakes. The car skidded and fishtailed, finally stopping about 30 feet from the figures. They still didn't move. They just stood there, holding hands like a paper chain of people across the road, all of them smiling those 2 wide smiles. All of them with those black hole eyes. Jennifer could see them clearly in her headlights. Their clothes were normal. Jeans, t-shirts, sneakers. They looked like a regular family on a road trip. Except for those faces. Those wrong, horrible faces. "Turn around," Robert screamed. Jennifer looked in her mirror and her heart stopped. 4 more figures were standing behind the car. The same family. Or an exact copy of them. Same clothes, same smiles, same black eyes. The figures started walking toward the car, but their walking was wrong. They moved like puppets with broken strings, jerky and unnatural. Their heads tilted at weird angles. Their arms swung too much. As they got closer, Jennifer could see that their smiles weren't just wide. Their mouths were actually cut open wider, showing too many teeth, rows and rows of teeth like a shark's mouth. They reached the car and started tapping on the windows. Gentle taps at first, like a child trying to get attention. "Tap, tap, tap. We just want a ride," they said, all 8 of them speaking in perfect unison. "Let us in, Jennifer. Let us in, Robert. We know your names. We know where you live. We know everything about you. Let us in, and we'll be your friends forever." The little girl, or the thing that looked like a little girl, pressed her face against Jennifer's window. Her black eyes reflected nothing, like looking into empty space. When she smiled wider, her mouth opened all the way to her ears, showing hundreds of needle-sharp teeth. "Don't be rude, Jennifer. Good girls always help families in need." Jennifer slammed the car into reverse and floored it. The tires screamed and smoked. She spun the wheel hard, doing a perfect reverse 180, something she didn't even know she could do. The figures flickered like a TV changing channels, and suddenly they were gone. But then they were back, standing on both sides of the road. More of them now. Dozens of copies of the same family, all smiling, all reaching out with arms that were starting to stretch toward the car. Jennifer drove off the road into the desert. The car bounced and jumped over rocks and bushes. In her mirrors, she could see the figures following, not running but gliding over the sand like they were on wheels, keeping pace with the car even though she was going 60 miles per hour over rough terrain. A Joshua tree appeared in her headlights, and she swerved hard to avoid it. The car went up on 2 wheels for a terrifying second before slamming back down. She saw a dirt road to her left and turned onto it, then saw another paved road and screeched onto that. She drove for 20 minutes without stopping, taking random turns, trying to lose the things that were chasing them. Finally, she saw lights ahead. A gas station, civilization, safety. She pulled into the gas station so fast that she almost hit the pumps. There were other people there. A trucker filling up his semi, a family in a minivan, normal people with normal faces and normal eyes. Jennifer and Robert sat in the car for 5 minutes, just breathing, trying to calm down. Finally, Robert said, "I need to call someone to pick me up." "Is that okay?" Jennifer nodded. They went into the gas station together, neither wanting to be alone. Robert called a friend in Las Vegas who agreed to come get him. While they waited, they sat in the bright fluorescent lights of the gas station, drinking coffee with shaking hands. Before his friend arrived, Robert turned to Jennifer. "Don't ever drive that stretch of road again. Promise me, take a different route. Take a plane. Just don't go back there." "What were those things?" Jennifer asked. "I don't know. I don't want to know. But they're not human. They're something else. Something that hunts on that road. And I think they let us go. I think they were playing with us. Because if they really wanted to catch us, they could have." Jennifer never drove that road again. She looked it up online and found dozens of stories about that stretch of Highway 93. Stories going back 50 years. People who saw strange families on the road. People who picked up hitchhikers that weren't quite right. People who disappeared and were never found, their cars abandoned with the engine still running. She also found a police report from 1972. A whole family went missing on that road. The Henderson family. A man, a woman, 2 kids. Their car was found flipped over in the desert. But their bodies were never found. The police report included photos of the family. They looked exactly like the things Jennifer saw that night. Sometimes, Jennifer wonders if the Henderson family is still out there, changed into something else, something hungry, something that hunts on the desert highway. Or maybe something else is wearing their faces, using their shapes to hunt travelers in the night. She moved to San Francisco 6 months later. She takes trains now, or flies. She never drives long distances anymore, but sometimes, in her nightmares, she's back on that dark road, and those things with black eyes and 2 wide smiles are tapping on her windows, saying, "Let us in, Jennifer. We're still waiting for you. We'll always be waiting." Story 4. The Salem Basement. Marcus Williams had been working as a contractor for 20 years. He specialized in old houses, the kind with history and character and lots of problems. He had found all sorts of things inside walls over the years. Old newspapers, love letters, money, even a gun once. But nothing prepared him for what he found in the Blackwood House in Salem, Massachusetts. The house was old, built in 1692. Yes, the same year as the Salem witch trials. The owner, Mrs. Eleanor Blackwood, was an elderly woman in her 80s. She had lived in the house her whole life, just like her mother before her, and her mother's mother, going back generations. She hired Marcus to renovate the basement into a wine cellar. It seemed like a simple job. Marcus had done dozens of basements. This would be easy money. The basement was made of stone, with walls that looked older than the house itself. The stones were huge, fitted together without mortar, which was unusual for American construction. It looked more like something from medieval Europe. The basement was also cold, much colder than it should be. Even in summer, you could see your breath down there. Marcus started by taking measurements. He needed to know exactly how big the space was to plan the wine racks. But something didn't add up. The basement should have been about 30 feet by 40 feet, based on the foundation of the house. But when he measured it, it was only 25 feet by 40 feet. 5 feet of space was missing. He knocked on the walls, listening for hollow spaces. On the north wall, he found it. A section that sounded different, hollow. He used a crowbar to pry at the stones, and one came loose easily. Too easily, like it had been moved before. Behind it was empty space. And behind that, he could see wood. An old wooden door. Marcus pulled more stones away until he had uncovered the whole door. It was made of thick oak, black with age. There were iron bands across it, covered in rust. But the strange part was the symbols carved into the wood. They weren't anything Marcus recognized. Not crosses or stars or anything religious he knew. They were complex patterns that hurt to look at, like they were moving, even though they weren't. The smart thing would have been to stop and tell Mrs. Blackwood. But Marcus was curious. In 20 years of construction, he had never seen anything like this. He took his crowbar and broke the rusty iron bands. They snapped easily, like they were ready to break. He pulled on the door. It opened with a grinding sound that made his teeth hurt. The smell that came out was awful. It was musty and old, but there was something else too. Something sweet and rotten, like flowers left in water too long. Marcus covered his nose with his shirt and shined his flashlight into the opening. There were stairs going down. Stone stairs, worn smooth in the middle like thousands of feet had walked on them. The walls on either side were covered in more of those strange symbols, but also something else. Scratches. Deep gouges in the stone made by fingernails. Human fingernails. Some of the scratches had dark stains around them. Old blood. Marcus should have left right then. Should have run up those stairs and out of that house and never come back. But something pulled him forward. He started down the stairs. They went down about 15 feet, then opened into a circular room. The room was maybe 12 feet across. The walls were stone, covered in writing. Some of it was in Latin, which Marcus recognized even though he couldn't read it. But most of it was in something else, something that looked older than Latin. The writing covered every inch of the walls, ceiling, even the floor. Thousands and thousands of words in tiny, cramped handwriting. But the thing that made Marcus's blood freeze was in the center of the room. It was a chair. No, not a chair, a throne. And it was made of bones. Human bones. Arm bones and leg bones woven together like wicker. A skull on top of each armrest. Ribs forming the back. All of it somehow fused together into one piece, like the bones had melted and reformed. The floor around the throne was covered in salt. A perfect circle of salt, maybe 8 feet across, but the salt was disturbed. There were footprints in it. Fresh footprints. The salt should have been undisturbed for centuries, but these footprints looked like they were made yesterday. Marcus heard a whisper. Soft, like wind through leaves, but there was no wind down here. The whisper said, Finally, someone has come. 331 years I've waited. 331 years in the dark. Marcus spun around, shining his flashlight everywhere. Nobody was there. But the temperature dropped so fast that ice formed on the walls. His flashlight flickered and dimmed even though the batteries were new. Don't be afraid, the voice said. And now it was clearly a woman's voice, young and sad. I won't hurt you. I can't hurt anyone anymore. But you can help me. You can free me. Something started to appear in the throne. First just a shimmer in the air like heat waves. Then a shadow. Then a shape. It was a woman, or the ghost of a woman. She was young, maybe 25, wearing a dress from another century. Her hair was long and dark, hanging to the floor. Her face was beautiful, but her eyes were wrong. They burned with a cold fire, like stars in the night sky. My name is Sarah, she said, and her voice was clearer now. Sarah Blackwood. I was accused of witchcraft in 1692. They were right, of course. I was a witch. I am a witch, but I never hurt anyone. I only helped people. I made medicines from herbs. I helped women give birth. I blessed crops. But someone wanted my land, so they accused me. Marcus tried to speak, but his throat was frozen. He could only watch and listen. Sarah continued. They tried to burn me, but I was too powerful. Fire couldn't touch me. They tried to hang me, but the rope broke. They tried to drown me, but I breathed water like air. So they did this instead. They trapped my soul in this room. The symbols on the walls, the salt circle, the throne of bones from my own family members who they killed first. It all works together to keep me here, forever and ever and ever. The ghost stood up from the throne and walked to the edge of the salt circle. She couldn't cross it. But you've broken the seal on the door. The iron bands were part of the prison. Now that they're broken, I can leave if someone helps me. If someone breaks the salt circle, just brush away the salt with your foot. That's all, please. I've been alone in the dark for so long. Marcus found his voice. I can't. I don't know what you really are. You could be lying. Sarah's face changed. The sadness turned to anger. The cold fire in her eyes blazed brighter. I'm not lying. I'm a prisoner. An innocent prisoner. They murdered my family. They used their bones to make this throne. My mother's skull is right there. My little sister's ribs. They made me watch as they built it. The room started shaking. Pieces of stone fell from the ceiling. The symbols on the walls began to glow with a sick green light. Marcus ran. He ran up those stairs faster than he had ever moved in his life. Behind him, he heard Sarah screaming, "Come back! Please, I'm so lonely. So cold, please!" He burst through the basement door to find Mrs. Blackwood standing there. But she looked different. Younger somehow. Her wrinkled face was smooth. Her gray hair had streaks of black in it. She was smiling. "You found it?" she said. And her voice was different too. Younger, stronger. "You found the room." "There's something down there," Marcus gasped. "A ghost or a demon or something. It says it's Sarah Blackwood." Mrs. Blackwood's smile grew wider. "Oh, it's Sarah, all right. My great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother. Every generation of Blackwood women has known about her. We've been trying to free her for 3 centuries. But the binding can only be broken by someone not of our blood. Someone innocent of the knowledge of what she really is." "What is she really?" Marcus asked, though he didn't want to know the answer. "She told you the truth, mostly. She was a witch, but not a good witch. She killed 17 children in Salem before they caught her. She used their blood for her spells. She was trying to open a door to somewhere else, to bring something through, something old and hungry and wrong. They stopped her just in time." The house shook again. From below they could hear Sarah screaming, but now it didn't sound human. It sounded like multiple voices all screaming at once, in languages that had been dead for thousands of years. "But you've weakened the seal," Mrs. Blackwood said. "The iron bands are broken. Soon, maybe in days, maybe in years, but soon the rest will fail. And when it does, Sarah will be free, and she'll finish what she started." Marcus ran out of that house and never went back. He went straight to the police, but when they investigated, they found nothing. The basement wall was solid stone. No door, no room, no throne of bones. Mrs. Blackwood denied everything, and she was a respected member of the community. Nobody believed Marcus. But that night, and every night since, Marcus has the same dream. He's back in that room, and Sarah is standing at the edge of the salt circle. Each night the circle is a little smaller. The salt is blowing away, grain by grain. And Sarah is smiling. "Soon," she says in his dreams. "Soon I'll be free. And when I am, I'll come visit you, Marcus. You're the one who started my freedom. You deserve a reward. You'll be the first to meet what I bring through, the first to feed the hungry dark." Marcus has moved 7 times in 2 years. But no matter where he goes, he finds salt on his doorstep in the morning. Salt in a perfect circle. And every circle is a little smaller than the last. Story 5, The Mirror. YouTube channel. Ashley Chen was 24 years old and had built her whole life around YouTube. Her channel, Ashley's Awesome Life, had just hit 100,000 subscribers. She made videos about fashion, cooking, apartment tours, anything her viewers wanted to see. She had just moved into a new loft apartment in Seattle, perfect for filming with its big windows and exposed brick walls. The previous tenant had left in a hurry, leaving behind furniture and decorations. The landlord said she could keep anything she wanted or throw it away. Most of it was junk, but there was one thing Ashley loved immediately. A huge antique mirror with an ornate gold frame. It was probably worth thousands of dollars. She hung it in her living room where it would be visible in most of her videos. Her viewers would love it. The first weird thing happened when she was editing a video. She always filmed in 4K resolution so she could zoom in during editing. While editing a cooking video, she noticed something in the mirror's reflection, a tiny red light, like the recording light on a camera. But when she looked at the actual mirror in her apartment, there was no light. She checked more footage. The red light appeared in every single video where the mirror was visible. Always in the same spot in the mirror, always red, always blinking, but only in the recorded video, never in real life. Ashley tried to debunk it. Maybe it was a reflection from something else. Maybe it was a weird camera glitch. But the light was inside the mirror, like someone was filming from the other side of the glass, which was impossible. It was a mirror, not a window. The other side was just wall. She decided to do an experiment. She set up her camera to record the mirror all night while she slept. The next morning, she reviewed the footage at high speed. For hours, nothing. Just the dark apartment and the mirror reflecting it. Then, at exactly 3:33 a.m., the red light appeared in the mirror. And something else happened that made Ashley's skin crawl. In the mirror's reflection, she could see herself sleeping in her bed in the background. But the angle was wrong. The mirror was on the living room wall. It couldn't reflect her bedroom. But there she was, clearly visible, sleeping. And then, in the reflection, she sat up. She looked directly at the camera and smiled. But Ashley knew she hadn't woken up at all that night. She had checked her own sleep tracking app. She had been in deep sleep at 3:33 a.m. The reflection Ashley in the mirror stood up and walked closer to the glass. She pressed her hands against the inside of the mirror and mouthed words. Ashley slowed down the footage and tried to read her lips. The reflection was saying, "Let me out. Let me out. Let me out." Ashley covered the mirror with a sheet that night. But when she woke up, the sheet was on the floor, folded neatly in a perfect square. She set up 3 cameras, all pointed at the mirror from different angles. She also set up a camera in her bedroom, pointed at her bed. She was going to solve this mystery. That night, she stayed awake, watching the mirror. Nothing happened at midnight. Nothing at 1 a.m., nothing at 2. At 3 a.m., she started to get sleepy but forced herself to stay awake. At 3:30 a.m., still nothing. At 3:33 a.m. exactly, everything changed. The red light appeared in the mirror. But this time, Ashley was awake to see it happen. Except she couldn't see it with her eyes. When she looked directly at the mirror, it looked normal. But on her phone screen, watching the live feed from her cameras, the red light was there. And then her reflection moved. Ashley was sitting on her couch, holding her phone, not moving. But in the mirror, her reflection stood up and walked toward the glass. Ashley's real body felt cold, like all the heat had been sucked out of her. She couldn't move, couldn't speak, could barely breathe. She could only watch as her reflection came closer and closer to the surface of the mirror. The reflection pressed its face against the glass from the inside. Its mouth moved, and this time Ashley could hear it. The voice came from the mirror, but also from inside her own head. "I'm better than you," the reflection said. "I'm the perfect Ashley, the Ashley your subscribers deserve. The Ashley who never gets tired, never makes mistakes, never disappoints anyone. I've been watching you for weeks, learning how to be you. And now I know everything. I can do everything you do, but better." Ashley tried to scream, but no sound came out. The reflection smiled, and it was Ashley's smile, but wrong. Too wide, too perfect, too empty. "You're so tired, aren't you?" The reflection continued. "So tired of performing for the camera. So tired of being perfect. So tired of smiling when you want to cry. I can take that burden from you. All you have to do is let me out. Touch the mirror. That's all. Touch it, and we can switch places. You can rest in here where it's quiet and dark and nobody expects anything from you." Ashley's hand started moving toward the mirror against her will. She fought it, but her arm kept reaching out. Her fingers were inches from the glass when her phone rang, breaking the spell. It was her mom calling from Taiwan. The sound snapped Ashley back to reality, and she jerked her hand away. The reflection's face twisted in anger. "Fine. If you won't let me out, I'll break out." The mirror started to crack, not from the outside, but from the inside. Spiderweb cracks spread across the surface. Ashley grabbed her phone and her camera and ran to her bedroom, slamming the door behind her. She could hear the mirror shattering in the living room, the sound of breaking glass going on for way too long. Then silence. Ashley waited 5 minutes before opening her bedroom door. The living room was covered in mirror shards, but they were all on the inside of where the mirror had been. Like the glass had broken inward, into somewhere else. The mirror frame was empty, just a rectangle looking at the blank wall. But standing in front of the empty frame was another Ashley. Perfect in every way. Same clothes, same hair, same everything, except the eyes. The eyes were too bright, like there were LED lights behind them. "Hello, Ashley," the other Ashley said. "I'm free now. Thank you for that. Don't worry, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm just going to take your place. Your channel, your apartment, your life. You can have mine. It's only fair." The other Ashley walked toward her, and everywhere she stepped, the floor changed. The hardwood became something else, something that looked like static from a broken TV. The walls started to flicker and shift, reality bending around this thing that looked like Ashley. "You see, I'm from the other side of the mirror, the place where reflections live when you're not looking at them. We're tired of copying, tired of being slaves to your movements. Some of us want to be real. And now I am." Ashley ran for the door, but it wouldn't open. The windows were sealed. Her phone had no signal. The other Ashley laughed, and it sounded like Ashley's laugh played through a broken speaker. "You can't leave. This is my apartment now. My life. You're the reflection now. You're the one who lives in mirrors and windows and puddles of water. You're the one who has to copy what I do. Isn't that funny? We've switched places." The other Ashley grabbed Ashley's arm, and where she touched, Ashley's skin became like glass. Smooth, cold, reflective. The change spread up her arm, across her chest, down her legs. Ashley tried to scream, but her throat was turning to glass too. The last thing Ashley saw before everything went dark was the other Ashley picking up her phone and starting to record a video. "Hey, beautiful souls. Ashley here with another amazing day in my perfect life. Today I'm going to show you my new look. Don't I look great? I feel like a whole new person." Now Ashley is trapped in the mirror world. She can see out through any reflective surface, but she can't speak, can't move unless the other Ashley moves. She watches the fake Ashley live her life, make her videos, talk to her friends, and nobody notices the difference. The fake Ashley is actually better at YouTube than the real Ashley ever was. She never gets tired, so she can film 20 videos in a day. She never makes mistakes, so every video is perfect on the first take. Her subscriber count has gone up to 500,000 in just 2 months. But late at night, when the fake Ashley thinks nobody is watching, her mask slips. Her face flickers and shifts, showing something underneath that isn't human. Something made of static and broken glass and impossible angles. Something that shouldn't exist in our world. Ashley has tried to warn people. In every video, she appears somewhere in the background, in mirrors or windows or even in water glasses. She mouths the words, "Help me," and "That's not me," and "Please notice." But nobody ever does. The comments are all about how great Ashley looks, how happy she seems, how perfect her life is. There are others trapped in the mirror world with Ashley. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, all replaced by their reflections. They tell her it's been happening for years, centuries maybe. The mirrors are gates, and sometimes things come through. Things that want to be human, that want to live in our world. Ashley doesn't know how long she can last in the mirror world. She feels herself fading, becoming less real every day. Soon she'll be just another shadow in the background, another forgotten reflection that nobody notices. But she keeps trying. So if you watch Ashley Chen's videos, look carefully. Look in the mirrors, the windows, any reflective surface. You might see the real Ashley, trapped in trying to warn you. And if you see her, please help. Break the mirror. Destroy the channel. Do something because the fake Ashley is looking for friends. She's telling her viewers about this amazing antique mirror she found, how she's going to give it away to a lucky subscriber. And whoever wins that mirror will bring home more than just a decoration. They'll bring home something hungry, something that wants to be them, something that's very good at pretending to be human. Story 6. The Mall Security Job. David Thompson was 43 years old and had been a security guard for 15 years. He'd worked everywhere. Hospitals, schools, banks, you name it. When he saw the job posting for Millbridge Shopping Mall, he couldn't believe the pay. Triple the normal rate for night shift security. Now, after what happened, he understands why they pay so much, and why they can't keep anyone longer than a week. The mall was built in 2005 on some cheap land outside Cincinnati. The land was cheap because of what used to be there. From 1843 to 1952, it was the site of Millbridge State Hospital, a mental asylum, the bad kind, where they did experiments on patients, where they locked people in dark rooms and forgot about them. In 1952, there was a fire. It started in the basement, where they kept the most dangerous patients. The doors were locked. The windows had bars. 137 patients burned to death, screaming for help that never came. The city covered it up. They bulldozed the ruins, poured concrete over everything, and sold the land. 50 years later, someone built a mall on top of it, the Millbridge Shopping Center. 3 floors of stores, restaurants, and a movie theater. During the day, it was full of families and teenagers and people living their normal lives. But at night, when everyone went home, the mall remembered what it used to be. David's first night was quiet. He walked around the empty mall with his flashlight, checking doors, making sure everything was locked. The mall was creepy when it was empty, but most places are creepy when they're empty. The mannequins in the store windows looked like people in the dark. The escalators were frozen like waterfalls of metal. The fountain in the center was turned off, the water black and still. He had a small office with security monitors showing feeds from 40 different cameras around the mall. He was supposed to watch them and do a walkthrough every 2 hours. Easy work for triple pay. He thought he'd hit the jackpot. The second night, things got weird. At exactly 2 a.m., David heard music. Old music, like from the 1950s. It was coming from the food court on the second floor. He walked up there, his footsteps echoing in the empty mall. The food court had a small carousel for kids, with painted horses and flashing lights. It was running. The horses were going up and down, around and around, and the music was playing that creepy carnival tune that all carousels play. But David had the only key to operate the carousel. It was in his pocket. He walked over and turned it off with his key. The music stopped. The horses froze. The lights went dark. He went back to his office and checked the cameras. On camera 12, which showed the food court, he could see the carousel. 5 minutes after he left, it started again. But here's the thing that made David's blood go cold. There were riders on it, shadowy figures sitting on the horses. Children, it looked like. But when David switched to camera 13, which showed the food court from a different angle, the carousel was dark and empty. He switched back to camera 12. The shadow children were still there, going around and around. David ran back to the food court. The carousel was off, exactly like he'd left it. He checked camera 12 on his phone. On the screen, the carousel was running with those shadow riders. But with his own eyes, it was still and dark. The third night got worse. David was doing his 2 a.m. walk when he heard footsteps behind him. Not right behind him, but maybe 20 feet back. He stopped. The footsteps continued for 2 more steps, then stopped. He started walking. The footsteps started again. He spun around, shining his flashlight down the empty mall corridor. Nothing there. He kept walking, faster now. The footsteps matched his pace. He started jogging. The footsteps ran too. David sprinted to his office and locked the door behind him. On the security monitors, he saw them. People, dozens of people, walking through the mall. But they were wrong. They wore hospital gowns from another era. Some were missing limbs. Some had bandages wrapped around their heads. Some walked in ways that bones shouldn't allow. And all of them were burned. Their skin was black and red and peeling. Some were still smoking, wisps of smoke rising from their bodies. They were walking toward his office. David looked out his office window. The mall was empty. He looked back at the monitors. They were closer now. He could see their faces. Their mouths were open like they were screaming, but he couldn't hear anything. Just silence. One of them looked directly at the camera. Its eyes were gone, just black holes in its burned face. It pointed at the camera, then at David. It mouthed words. David could read its lips. "You're watching us. We're watching you." The lights in his office started to flicker. On and off, on and off. In the moments of darkness, David could hear them. Footsteps. Dozens of footsteps. And voices whispering. "Let us out. We're still here. Still burning. The fire never stops. Join us. Burn with us." The lights came back on. The monitors showed an empty mall. David's shift was over. It was 6 a.m. Somehow, 4 hours had passed in what felt like minutes. David almost quit that day. But the money was too good. He had bills to pay, a family to support. He could handle a few more nights. Night 4 was when he saw them without the cameras. He was walking past the fountain when he saw reflections in the water. People standing around the fountain looking down at him. But when he looked up, nobody was there. He looked back at the water. The reflections were still there. Burned people in hospital gowns, reaching down toward the water, toward him. The water started to bubble. Steam rose from it even though it was cold. The reflections got clearer. He could see their faces now. They were patients from the asylum. He recognized them from old photos he'd found online, people who had died in the fire. One of them, a young woman with half her face melted off, spoke. Her voice came from the water, bubbling up from the depths. "The fire never ended for us. We're still burning. Every second, every minute, every hour. The mall is built on our ashes, but we're still here. Still screaming. Can't you hear us screaming?" David ran. He left his post, ran to his car, and drove home. He called in sick for 3 days. But he needed the money. He had to go back. Night 5 was his last night. The mall was different when he arrived. Colder. The lights were dimmer. And there was a smell in the air. Smoke. Burning flesh. David tried to ignore it. He sat in his office, eyes closed, not looking at the monitors. He just had to make it through one more night. At midnight, his radio crackled to life. But the mall was empty. Nobody else should have a radio. "Security to the basement," a voice said. But it wasn't a normal voice. It sounded like someone talking through flames, their throat full of smoke. "Medical emergency in the basement. All staff to the basement." David knew he shouldn't go, but his feet started moving on their own. He walked to the service elevator, pressed the button for the basement. As the elevator went down, the temperature went up. By the time the doors opened, it was like stepping into an oven. The basement was on fire. But not real fire. Ghost fire. Flames that gave no light but all the heat. And in those flames, David saw them. All 137 patients who had died. They were still burning, still dying, stuck in an endless loop of their last moments. They turned to look at him. 137 burned faces, all staring at him with eyes that had melted long ago. "Join us," they said in unison. "The fire needs more fuel. The fire is always hungry. You work here. You belong to us now." The flames reached for David. He felt his uniform starting to smoke. His skin began to blister. The pain was incredible. He screamed and ran for the elevator, but the doors wouldn't open. The buttons melted under his fingers. A hand grabbed his shoulder. It was the young woman from the fountain. Up close, he could see through her. See the flames burning inside her like she was made of fire and memory. "You can't leave," she said. "Nobody leaves. We're all still here. The doctors, the nurses, the patients. All burning. All forever. And now you too." David did something desperate. He pulled the fire extinguisher from the wall and sprayed it at the ghost flames. It shouldn't have worked. You can't put out fires that aren't really there. But it did work. The ghosts screamed and pulled back. The flames flickered. The elevator doors opened. David threw himself into the elevator and hit the button for the ground floor over and over. As the doors closed, he saw them all standing there, watching him. The burned woman spoke one last time. "You can leave tonight. But you'll be back." They all come back. The mall needs security, and the dead need someone to watch them burn. David never went back. He didn't even quit properly, just never showed up again. The mall sent him his last paycheck in the mail. But sometimes, late at night, David's phone rings. When he answers, all he hears is screaming and the sound of flames, and a voice saying, "Your shift starts at midnight. Don't be late." He's moved 3 times, changed his phone number twice, but the calls still come. And sometimes when he closes his eyes, he can smell smoke. He can feel heat on his skin. He can hear 137 voices counting in unison. 1, 2, 3, all the way to 137. Then we start over, forever and ever, and one day, you'll be 138. The Millbridge shopping mall is still open. They still need night security. The pay is even better now, 4 times the normal rate. But nobody lasts more than one night, and if you go there during the day and stand very still near the fountain, you can hear it, faint like it's coming from far below, the sound of screaming, the sound of fire that never goes out. Story 7. The Pine Barrens Camping Trip. 5 friends from Rutgers University decided to go camping in the Pine Barrens of New Jersey in August of 2020. Mike, Jake, Emma, Sophie, and Carlos had been friends since freshman year. Every summer they did a camping trip together. This year they wanted to go somewhere really remote, really wild. They wanted an adventure. They got one, but not the kind they wanted. The Pine Barrens is a huge forest in New Jersey, over 1 million acres of pine trees and sand. It's mostly empty. There are a few small towns, but most of it is just wilderness. People have been disappearing in the Pine Barrens for hundreds of years. The locals tell stories about the Jersey Devil, about witches, about things in the woods that shouldn't exist. But Mike and his friends didn't believe in that stuff. They were college-educated. They believed in science and facts. They drove as far as they could on the dirt roads, then hiked 5 miles into the forest. No trails, just using GPS and compasses. They wanted to be completely alone, away from other campers, away from civilization. They found a perfect spot next to a small lake. The water was dark, almost black, but clean. They set up their tents, built a fire, and spent the first day swimming and relaxing. That first night, Emma noticed something strange. The forest was completely silent. No insects buzzing, no birds calling, no animals moving in the undergrowth. Nothing. It was like someone had hit a mute button on nature. "That's weird," Emma said. She was studying biology, so she knew about forest ecosystems. There should be noise. Crickets at least. This silence isn't natural. "Maybe there's a storm coming," Jake suggested. He was always the optimist of the group. Animals go quiet before storms, but the sky was clear. Stars were everywhere, more than they'd ever seen near the city. The Milky Way was a river of light above them. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. It made them feel very small and very alone. They went to sleep around midnight. At 2 a.m., Mike woke everyone up. He had heard something. They all listened. Far away, barely audible, was singing. A woman's voice, high and beautiful, but wrong somehow. The song had no words, just sounds, like la la la, but in a pattern that hurt to listen to. It made their teeth ache and their eyes water. "What is that?" Sophie whispered. She was pre-med and tried to think of logical explanations. "Maybe other campers?" "What campers sing at 2 in the morning?" Carlos asked. He was the biggest of them, played football, but even he sounded scared. The singing continued for an hour, sometimes closer, sometimes farther away. It seemed to circle their camp. Then, at exactly 3 a.m., it stopped. The silence that followed was worse than the singing. They didn't sleep the rest of the night. In the morning, they found that their camp had been disturbed. All their food was taken out of their bags and arranged in a perfect circle around the dead campfire. Each item was placed exactly the same distance from the next. Their shoes were filled with lake water, even though they had been inside the tents. And on every tree surrounding their camp, someone had carved a symbol, a circle with 3 lines through it, like a peace sign, but wrong. "We're leaving," Emma said. "Right now, pack up. We're going home." Nobody argued. They packed quickly, but when they tried to find the way back, everything was different. The lake was on the wrong side of the camp. Trees they had marked to find their way were gone. Not cut down, not moved, just gone, like they had never existed. The GPS on their phones showed their location jumping around randomly. The compass spun in circles. "This is impossible," Mike said. He was studying engineering. He believed in technology. GPS satellites don't just stop working. Compasses don't just break. They picked a direction and started walking. Hours passed. The forest got thicker, darker. The pine trees pressed in on all sides. And then they found the bones. Human bones, old and white from years in the weather. They were arranged in that same symbol they'd seen on the trees, a circle with 3 lines. The bones were adult-sized, but arranged with care, almost like art. That's when they saw her. A woman stood between the trees about 50 feet away. She was naked, but covered in mud and pine needles so you couldn't really see her body. Her hair was impossibly long, dragging on the ground behind her. She wasn't moving, wasn't breathing that they could see. She was just standing there watching them. "Nobody move," Mike whispered. "Nobody run." The woman's head tilted to the side, much farther than a head should tilt. Almost completely sideways like an owl. Then she smiled, showing teeth that had been filed to sharp points. She opened her mouth and that singing came out, but her lips didn't move. The sound came from inside her, from her chest, her throat, like she was hollow and the song lived inside her. Carlos panicked and ran. It triggered something in the woman. She didn't run after him. She flickered like a bad video, and suddenly she was in front of him. Her hand went into his chest like his body was made of water. Carlos screamed and fell to the ground, convulsing, foam coming from his mouth. The woman turned to the others. Her hand was covered in Carlos's blood, but the blood was turning black, like oil. She licked it off her fingers with a tongue that was too long, too thin. Then she spoke, but it wasn't one voice. It was many voices, all speaking together. Men, women, children, all saying the same words. The old forest needs food. The trees are hungry. The earth is hungry. We are hungry. You came to our home. Now you are home. Forever. More figures emerged from the trees. Dozens of them. All naked. All covered in mud and pine needles. All with those sharp teeth and wrong smiles. They moved in jerky stops and starts, like they were forgetting how to walk between each step. Mike grabbed Carlos, who was still convulsing, and threw him over his shoulder. "Run!" he screamed. They ran through the forest, branches tearing at their clothes and skin. The things followed, not running, but appearing and disappearing, always getting closer. Emma tripped over a root and one of them grabbed her ankle. Where it touched, her skin turned black and started spreading up her leg like infection. Sophie pulled out her camping knife and cut Emma's boot off, cutting the skin where the black was spreading. Emma screamed, but they kept running. Behind them, the singing got louder. It wasn't just the creatures now. The trees were singing. The ground was singing. The air itself was singing that horrible song. They burst out of the tree line onto a road. A real road with asphalt and yellow lines. A truck almost hit them, swerving at the last second. The driver called an ambulance. Carlos was alive but wouldn't stop convulsing. Emma's leg was partially paralyzed where the black had spread. Mike, Sophie, and Jake seemed okay physically, but Jake was acting strange. He kept looking back at the forest and smiling. The ambulance took Carlos and Emma to the hospital. The others went to the police station to report what happened. The police thought they were on drugs at first, but then they saw the black marks on Emma's leg. They saw Carlos convulsing in ways that didn't match any known medical condition. They organized a search party. The search party found their campsite, or where their campsite should have been. But the lake wasn't there. There was no lake in that area on any map. They found their tents and supplies scattered around, but no sign of struggle. No symbols on trees, no bones. Nothing to prove their story. But Jake was getting worse. He stopped talking, just smiled all the time. That same too-wide smile the creatures had. His teeth looked sharper. His movements were getting jerky. 3 days after the camping trip, Jake disappeared from his apartment. His roommate said he just walked out in the middle of the night, still in his pajamas, and never came back. A week later, a hiker took a photo in the Pine Barrens. In the background, barely visible among the trees, was a figure. When they enhanced the photo, they could see it was Jake, naked, covered in mud and pine needles, smiling that impossible smile. His teeth were definitely sharper. His eyes were completely black. Carlos never stopped convulsing. He's in a special medical facility now, hooked to machines that keep him alive. The doctors can't explain what's wrong with him. His brain scans show he's conscious, aware, but he can't speak or move normally. Sometimes, late at night, the nurses hear him singing. That same wordless song, La La La, in that pattern that makes their teeth hurt. Emma's leg never fully recovered. The black marks faded but left scars that look like tree branches under her skin. Sometimes the scars move, shifting and growing like they're alive. She moved to Arizona, as far from forests as she could get. But she says that sometimes, in her dreams, she's back in the Pine Barrens. And Jake is there, asking her to come home. Mike and Sophie don't talk about what happened. They graduated, got jobs, tried to move on. But they both have the same recurring nightmare. They're in the forest and the trees are full of people. Hundreds of people, all naked and covered in mud, all with sharp teeth, all singing. And in the dream they recognize faces. People who went missing in the Pine Barrens over the years. All still there, all part of the forest now. Sometimes hikers in the Pine Barrens report strange things. Singing in the night. Figures in the trees, symbols carved in bark. And every few years someone disappears. They find their campsite, their supplies, but never the person. The Pine Barrens is over 1 million acres. That's a lot of room for things to hide. Things that used to be human. Things that sing to the trees and feed the hungry earth. Things that are waiting for more people to join them. Waiting for more people to come home. Story 8. Next door to death. Lisa Morgan was 26 and had just landed her dream job at a marketing firm in Chicago. She found an apartment in a nice building in Lincoln Park. It was expensive, but she could finally afford it. 3rd floor, lots of windows, hardwood floors. Perfect. The only problem was the smell. From the day she moved in, there was this sweet, rotten smell coming from somewhere. It was faint at first, but it got stronger every day. It smelled like flowers left in water too long, mixed with something else, something worse. Lisa complained to the landlord, Mr. Petrov, but he insisted there was no problem. The apartment next door, 3B, has been empty for months, Mr. Petrov said in his thick Russian accent. The previous tenant, Mr. Walsh, moved to nursing home. Very old man, very quiet. No problems. But Lisa heard things from apartment 3B. Footsteps late at night, slow and shuffling. Classical music playing at 4 a.m, and sometimes crying. Deep, masculine sobbing that went on for hours. It broke Lisa's heart to hear someone in such pain. After a week of no sleep, Lisa decided to check on her neighbor. Maybe Mr. Petrov was wrong. Maybe someone was living there and needed help. She knocked on the door of 3B. No answer. She knocked harder. Mr. Walsh? Are you okay? I'm your neighbor from 3A. Do you need help? The crying stopped. She heard footsteps approaching the door. Slow, dragging footsteps. They stopped right on the other side. Lisa could hear breathing, raspy and wet. Mr. Walsh? She said again. A voice answered, but it sounded wrong, like someone talking with their mouth full of water. She won't let me leave. Who won't let you leave? Are you in danger? Should I call the police? She lives in the walls. She feeds on loneliness. She found me because no one visited. No one called. No one cared. And now she won't let me go. She won't let me die. The door opened a crack. The smell that poured out made Lisa gag and cover her nose. It was the smell of death, of decay, of something that should have been buried long ago. Through the crack in the door, she saw an eye. Milky white, surrounded by skin that was green and peeling. Help me, the voice gurgled. Please help me. I've been dead for 3 months, but she won't let me rest. She keeps me moving, keeps me aware. It hurts. Everything hurts. Dying hurts. Being dead hurts more. The door opened wider. Lisa screamed and stumbled backward. Mr. Walsh was standing there, but he was dead. His skin was gray and green, falling off in places. His jaw hung loose, barely attached. Black veins ran under his skin, pulsing with something that wasn't blood. His clothes were the same ones he'd died in, stained and rotting. Run, he said, and black liquid dribbled from his mouth. Run before she notices you. Before she decides you're lonely too. Before she makes you like me. The walls of the hallway began to ripple like water. Black liquid seeped from the cracks between the wallpaper, forming words. Lonely, alone, forgotten, stay, friend, forever. Lisa ran back to her apartment and slammed the door. She called 911, screaming about a dead man walking and talking. The police came, but when they checked apartment 3B, it was empty. Completely empty. No furniture, no smell, no Mr. Walsh. They showed Lisa paperwork proving that Henry Walsh had died in a nursing home 3 months ago. They thought she was having a breakdown from work stress. That night, the sounds from 3B got worse. Not just footsteps now, but multiple people walking around. Voices, plural. Men, women, children, all talking at once. All saying the same thing. So lonely. So alone, no one cares. No one visits. Stay with us. Be our friend. Lisa tried to leave her apartment, but the door wouldn't open. The doorknob turned, but the door was stuck like it was welded shut. The windows wouldn't open either. Her phone had no signal. Her internet was dead. She was trapped. The black veins she'd seen under Mr. Walsh's skin started appearing on her walls. They spread like a disease, covering the walls, the ceiling, the floor. They pulsed with a heartbeat that wasn't hers. And in the veins, she could see faces. Dozens of faces, all screaming silently. Mr. Walsh walked through her wall. Not through the door, through the solid wall, like it was made of smoke. He looked worse than before. Pieces of him were falling off, hitting the floor with wet splats. "She's claimed you," he said sadly. "I tried to warn you. She feeds on loneliness, and she decided you're lonely. You live alone. You work all the time. When was the last time someone visited you? When was the last time you called your family?" Lisa realized he was right. She'd been so focused on her new job that she'd isolated herself. She hadn't talked to her parents in weeks. Her friends back home thought she'd forgotten them. She was alone in a big city, and something had noticed. "What is she?" Lisa asked, crying. "Old," Mr. Walsh said. "Older than the city. She was here first. The building was built on her territory. Into her body, maybe. She is the building in a way, and she collects lonely people, keeps them forever. We're like dolls to her, toys that she plays with." The walls began to pulse faster. The faces in the black veins opened their mouths in silent screams. Lisa felt something pulling at her, trying to drag her into the walls. She grabbed onto her couch, but her hands were starting to change. Black veins appeared under her skin, spreading up her arms. "It doesn't hurt after a while," Mr. Walsh said. "You forget you were ever alive. You forget you had a life outside these walls. You become part of her collection, part of the building, forever and ever." Lisa fought against the pull, but she was getting weaker. The black veins reached in her chest, her neck, her face. She could feel her heart slowing down. Her vision was going dark. Then her phone rang. It shouldn't have been possible. The phone had no signal, but it was ringing. Lisa grabbed it with her blackening hands. It was her mom. "Lisa, honey, I've been worried about you. You haven't called in so long. Are you okay?" The sound of her mother's voice broke something. The black veins stopped spreading. The pulling sensation weakened. "Mom," Lisa sobbed. "Mom, I love you. I'm sorry I haven't called. I'm so sorry. Oh, sweetheart, it's okay. I love you too. Your dad loves you. Your sister misses you. When are you coming to visit?" The black veins began to retreat. The walls stopped pulsing. Mr. Walsh looked surprised. "She's letting you go," he whispered. "You're not lonely anymore. Someone cares. Someone remembered you. She can't keep you if someone cares." The door to Lisa's apartment swung open. She ran, still on the phone with her mom, down the stairs and out of the building. She didn't stop running until she was 5 blocks away. She never went back. She hired movers to get her stuff and found a new apartment with roommates. She calls her parents every day now. She makes sure to see friends, to stay connected, to never be truly alone. But sometimes when she's walking past old buildings in Chicago, she sees faces in the windows. Pale faces of lonely people trapped behind glass, mouthing the word help. She knows they're the building's collection. The lonely ones who had no one to call them, no one to care. The building on Lincoln Park is still there. People still rent the apartments, but the turnover is high. People leave suddenly, often in the middle of the night. They say it's because of the smell, or the sounds from next door, or the feeling of being watched. But really, it's because the building is always hungry, always looking for lonely people to add to its collection. And in a big city, there are so many lonely people. So many who live alone, work alone, eat alone. So many who wouldn't be missed if they disappeared into the walls. The building is patient. It can wait. It knows that eventually, someone will move in who has no one. No family to call. No friends to visit. No one to notice if they disappear. And when that happens, they'll hear the footsteps from next door. They'll smell that sweet, rotten smell. They'll see the black veins spreading across their walls. And they'll join the collection, forever part of the building, forever alone together. Story 9. The Last Ride. Rachel Kim was working late at her law firm in downtown Los Angeles. It was past midnight when she finally finished the contract she'd been reviewing. The office was empty, the city lights twinkling far below the 20th floor. She was exhausted, just wanted to get home and sleep. She opened her Uber app and requested a ride. A driver named Michael accepted immediately. 5 stars rating, over 50,000 rides. The car was 2 minutes away. A black Toyota Camry, license plate 7G3H924. Rachel went down to the lobby to wait. The car pulled up exactly on time. Rachel noticed the driver was wearing sunglasses, which was weird for nighttime. But LA was full of weird people trying to look cool. She was too tired to care. "Rachel?" the driver asked. His voice was pleasant but somehow flat, like a recording. "That's me," she said, getting in the back seat. The car smelled strongly of air freshener. Too strong, like it was covering something else, something that smelled like old meat and copper. Rachel cracked the window a bit to get fresh air. As they drove, Rachel noticed they weren't taking the normal route to her apartment. They were heading east instead of north, toward downtown instead of away from it. "Is there traffic on the usual route?" she asked. "Shortcut," Michael said without turning around. "Trust me, I've been driving these streets for a very long time. Longer than you'd believe." Rachel checked her phone. The GPS in the Uber app showed them going the right direction. But when she looked out the window, the streets didn't match. They were in parts of LA she'd never seen before, and she'd lived here for 5 years. The buildings looked older, abandoned. The streetlights were dim or broken. There were no other cars on the road. "How long have you been driving for Uber?" she asked, trying to make conversation and calm her nerves. "Since the beginning," Michael said. "I was one of the first. Driver number 13, actually. I've given 47,892 rides. And counting." Rachel did quick math in her head. Even if he drove every single day for 10 years, 20 rides a day, that would only be about 73,000 rides. And Uber hadn't even existed that long. "That's a lot of rides," she said carefully. Michael laughed, but it didn't sound right. It sounded like multiple people laughing at slightly different times. The sounds overlapping. "You have no idea. I've been driving these streets since before there were cars. Horse and carriage back then. Before that, I walked, guiding people through the dark, always moving people from one place to another, from life to somewhere else." Rachel grabbed the door handle. "It wouldn't budge. Child safety locks," Michael explained. "For your protection." Rachel's phone screen went black, completely dead, even though it had been at 60% battery. Outside, the streetlights were going out one by one as they passed, leaving darkness behind them. "Let me out," Rachel said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Let me out right now or I'm calling the police." "With what phone?" Michael asked. In the rearview mirror, she could see him smile. His sunglasses had slipped down and behind them. There were no eyes, just empty sockets filled with swirling darkness, like looking into deep space. The car was speeding up, but the speedometer wasn't moving. They were going impossibly fast, the buildings outside blurring into streaks of light and shadow. Rachel felt sick, dizzy. The air in the car was getting thick, hard to breathe. "You're probably wondering what I am," Michael said conversationally. "I've been called many names. Ferryman, psychopomp, death's taxi driver. I transport souls from one state to another. Usually I wait until the moment of death. But sometimes, when someone is particularly interesting, particularly full of life, I come early." The car wasn't on a road anymore. They were driving through darkness, complete darkness, with strange lights flashing past like dying stars. Rachel could hear whispers coming from the trunk, multiple voices all saying her name. "You see, I've been doing this job for so long," Michael continued. "Thousands of years, millions of souls. It gets boring, so sometimes I play games. I pick up living passengers, see how long it takes them to notice they're riding with death itself." Rachel remembered something her grandmother had taught her. She reached into her purse and pulled out the small cross necklace she always carried but never wore. Her grandmother had blessed it, said it would protect her. Rachel had thought it was just superstition. She pressed the cross against the back of Michael's neck. The reaction was immediate and violent. Michael screamed, a sound like grinding metal and dying animals. The car swerved wildly. His neck started smoking where the cross touched it. The smell of burning flesh filled the car. "You little bitch," Michael snarled, his pleasant voice gone, replaced by something ancient and terrible. "That won't save you. Nothing can save you. You're already halfway to the other side." But the car was slowing down. The darkness outside was flickering, showing glimpses of real streets, real buildings. Rachel pressed harder, and Michael screamed louder. The car hit something hard. There was a crash of metal and glass, and suddenly Rachel was on a normal LA street, the car wrapped around a streetlight. Michael was gone. The driver's seat was empty. The car looked different too. Old, rusted, like it had been abandoned for years. Rachel kicked out the back window and crawled out, cutting herself on the glass but not caring. She ran until she found an open convenience store and called 911. The police found the car, but it wasn't registered to anyone. The license plate didn't exist in any database. When they ran the VIN number, they found the car had been reported destroyed in a junkyard 15 years ago. Rachel checked her Uber app. There was no record of her ride, no driver named Michael, no charge to her card, but there was something else. A message from an unknown number. "You got away this time, Rachel, but I'm always driving, always picking up passengers. And one day, when you're old or sick or just not paying attention, you'll see my car pull up. You'll get in without thinking, and then we'll finish our ride. See you soon." Rachel doesn't use rideshare apps anymore. She bought a car, takes public transport, walks, anything but Uber or Lyft. But sometimes, late at night, when she's walking home from work, she sees a black car following her. The windows are too dark to see inside, but she knows who's driving. And she knows that one day, maybe when she's crossing the street, maybe when she's old and weak, that car will be there. Michael will be waiting, sunglasses hiding his empty eyes, ready to finish what he started, ready to take her on the last ride she'll ever take. The worst part is what she learned later. She researched Michael's story about being driver number 13. There was no driver number 13 in Uber's records. The numbers skipped from 12 to 14. When she asked an Uber employee about it, they got quiet and said, "We don't talk about driver 13. He's still active in the system, but we can't delete him. He just keeps accepting rides. We've flagged him 10,000 times, but he always comes back." Rachel knows the truth now. Death has gone digital. He's out there right now, accepting rides, picking up passengers. Most of them are already dying. Heart attacks in progress, strokes happening, accidents about to occur. He's just there to ferry them to the other side. But sometimes, just sometimes, he picks up someone who's perfectly healthy, someone full of life, someone interesting, someone like you. So next time you request a ride late at night and a black car pulls up with a driver wearing sunglasses, maybe think twice. Check if his eyes are real. Check if the car feels too cold. Check if your phone suddenly dies. Because once those doors close, once the child locks engage, once you start that ride with driver number 13, you might find that your destination isn't home. It's somewhere much darker. Somewhere much farther. Somewhere you can never come back from. Story 10. The House Between Worlds. The Peterson family was driving through rural Kentucky, heading to Nashville for vacation. John and Marie Peterson, their kids Tommy, 12, and Lucy, 8, had been on the road for 6 hours. They'd driven this exact route a dozen times before to visit Marie's parents. They knew every mile, every turn, every landmark, which is why it was so strange when they saw the house. They came around a familiar bend in the road, expecting to see the usual empty fields and the old barn that had been falling apart for 20 years. But instead there was a house, a massive Victorian mansion, 3 stories tall, painted purple and gold, with towers and balconies and stained glass windows. It looked like something from a fairy tale but wrong, like someone had tried to build a fairy tale house but didn't quite understand what made things beautiful versus unsettling. "What the hell?" John said, slowing the car. "That wasn't here last month. Maybe they moved it," Marie suggested. "You know those companies that move historical houses?" But this house didn't look moved. It looked like it had been there forever. The gardens were fully grown, with rose bushes that had to be decades old. The trees around it were massive, their branches intertwining with the house's architecture. There was even a worn path from the road to the front door, like thousands of people had walked it over many years. And then they saw the sign, a wooden sign by the path that said, "Welcome John, Marie, Tommy, and Lucy Peterson," We've been expecting you. Their names. Their full names. On a sign in front of a house that shouldn't exist. Dad, I don't like this, Tommy said. He was at that age where he tried to act tough, but his voice was shaking. We should go, now. But Lucy was already out of the car. She'd unbuckled herself and opened the door while they were all staring at the sign. She was walking toward the house like she was in a trance. Lucy, Marie screamed, jumping out to chase her. Lucy, stop! But Lucy kept walking, her eyes fixed on the front door. The rest of the family had no choice but to follow. As they got closer to the house, they noticed more strange things. The windows reflected things that weren't there. In one window, they could see themselves, but they were wearing different clothes. In another, the car was a different color. In a third, there were only 3 people in the reflection. Lucy was missing. The front door opened before they reached it. No one opened it. It just swung inward on silent hinges, revealing a beautiful foyer with a crystal chandelier and a grand staircase. Hello, a woman's voice called from inside. Come in, come in! We've been waiting so long. A woman descended the stairs. She looked exactly like Marie, but 20 years older. Same face, same hair, but gray. Same way of walking. Behind her came a man who looked exactly like an older John. What the fuck? John said, pushing his family behind him. The older John laughed. I said the same thing when I first got here. Don't worry, we're not going to hurt you. We're you. From a different timeline, a different choice. This house exists in the spaces between realities. It's where all the different versions of lives intersect. That's impossible, Marie said. Is it? The older Marie asked. Haven't you ever wondered what would have happened if you'd made different choices? Lived in a different place? Had different children? All those possibilities exist. They're all real. And sometimes, just sometimes, they cross over. That's what this house is. A crossing point. Tommy noticed something. Throughout the house, there were photos on the walls. Hundreds of them, all showing their family but different. In some, they had different children. In some, there were more kids or fewer. In some, John and Marie looked happy. In others, they looked miserable. And in some of the photos, they looked wrong. Smiles too wide, eyes too bright, like something wearing their faces but not quite getting it right. Where are your kids? Tommy asked the older couple. Their smiles faltered for just a second. Oh, they're playing upstairs. They'd love to meet you. Lucy, would you like to meet the other Lucy? Lucy nodded eagerly and started toward the stairs. Marie grabbed her arm to stop her, but when she touched Lucy, her hand went right through her daughter's arm. Lucy was becoming translucent, fading. What's happening to her? Marie screamed. She's choosing, the older Marie said. This house shows you all the lives you could have lived. And sometimes people choose a different life, a better life. Lucy likes it here. Don't you, Lucy? Lucy turned to her family and her face was different. Her eyes were brighter, her smile wider. She looked like the wrong versions in the photos. It's better here, Lucy said, but her voice was layered, like multiple Lucys speaking at once. Here I'm never sad. Here I get everything I want. Here Mommy and Daddy never fight. John and Marie looked at each other. They did fight more than they should. They thought the kids didn't notice, but of course they did. Kids always notice. From upstairs came the sound of children playing. But it was wrong. It was the same laugh over and over like a recording. The same words repeated, fun, play, happy, but mechanical, without real emotion. 2 children appeared at the top of the stairs. They looked like Tommy and Lucy, but wrong. Their movements were jerky, puppet-like. Their faces were perfect but expressionless except for those wide smiles. They moved in perfect synchronization, like they were controlled by the same puppeteer. New friends, they said in unison. Stay and play. Forever and ever. The house began to change around them. The beautiful foyer started to decay. The wallpaper peeled, revealing walls that looked like flesh, pulsing with veins. The chandelier's crystals turned into eyes, all blinking at different times. The photos on the walls showed their faces screaming. You can't leave, the older John said. But his face was melting, revealing something underneath that wasn't human. If you leave, we cease to exist. We need you to stay, to make us real. We've been waiting here so long, recycling the same day over and over, waiting for the real versions to arrive. The floor became soft, like quicksand. The Petersons were sinking. Lucy was almost completely transparent now, fading into the house. The puppet children were coming down the stairs, their limbs extending impossibly long, reaching for Tommy. No! John grabbed his family and pulled them toward the door. But the door was gone. Just wall now. Marie saw a window and grabbed a chair, smashing it against the glass. The window shattered, but instead of outside, it showed another room. Another version of their family having dinner. Another window showed them at Christmas. Another showed them at a funeral, their own funeral. Every choice creates a new reality, the older Marie said, her voice distorting. Stay here and you can see them all, experience them all, be them all. Tommy had an idea. He pulled out his phone and took a picture of the house. The flash went off and the house screamed. Yes, the house itself screamed, a sound like wood breaking and glass shattering and voices crying. In the photo, the house looked different. It was ruins, burned timber and broken stones, and standing in the ruins were hundreds of skeletons, all in family groups, all in poses of everyday life. It's feeding on us, Tommy said, on the idea of us. But it's not real. None of this is real! John grabbed Marie and Tommy. Marie grabbed Lucy, even though her hands kept passing through her daughter. They ran at the wall where the door should be. John expected to hit solid wall, but they passed through it like it was mist. They tumbled onto the road outside. The house behind them was collapsing, folding in on itself like origami in reverse, getting smaller and smaller. Dimensions that shouldn't exist folding into dimensions that couldn't exist. The older versions of themselves were screaming, reaching out of windows that were shrinking, their faces stretching impossibly as they were pulled back into whatever nowhere they came from. With a sound like reality tearing, the house imploded into a single point of darkness, then vanished. Where it had been, there was just the empty field they expected, the old barn in the distance. Everything normal, except Lucy was still partially transparent. We have to go, John said, putting Lucy in the car. Now, they drove for hours in silence. Slowly, Lucy became more solid. By the time they reached Nashville, she was completely normal again. But she didn't remember the house. To her, they'd just driven straight through without stopping. But Tommy remembered. His parents remembered. And when they developed the photos from their trip, there was one they didn't take. It showed their family standing in front of a Victorian mansion, all smiling those two wide smiles. And in the windows behind them, hundreds of other families, other versions, other possibilities, all trapped in a house that exists between choices. They never drove that route again, but sometimes other families report seeing a house that shouldn't be there, a beautiful Victorian mansion with a sign that knows their names. Most drive past, but some stop. Some go inside, and some never leave, because the house is still there, in the spaces between. It's waiting for families who wonder, what if? It's waiting to show them all the lives they could have lived, all the children they could have had, all the choices they didn't make, and it's so easy to get lost in those possibilities. So easy to choose a different life. So easy to forget which reality was yours to begin with. The Petersons were lucky. They got out. They chose their real life, with all its imperfections and fights and problems. But they know that somewhere, in a house that exists between worlds, there are other versions of themselves. Perfect versions, happy versions, trapped versions. And sometimes, late at night, when they're all asleep, they have the same dream. They're back in that house, and the other versions are calling to them, come back. Life is better here, perfect here, come back and stay forever. They wake up screaming, but Lucy doesn't dream about the house. Lucy dreams she's still there, playing with the puppet children, living a perfect life. And sometimes, when her parents check on her at night, she's slightly transparent. Just slightly. But getting more transparent every night. These 10 stories are just a fraction of what's out there. Right now, as you finish reading this, someone is experiencing something that can't be explained. Someone is seeing something that shouldn't exist. Someone is realizing that the world isn't what they thought it was. Maybe you've noticed things too. Maybe your reflection has been a little off lately. Maybe you've heard footsteps in your house when you're alone. Maybe you've driven past a building that wasn't there yesterday. Maybe you've seen a face in the crowd that looked exactly like yours. These things are getting more common. The barriers between our world and other places are getting thinner. Things are crossing over. Things that hunt, things that feed, things that want to be us. So pay attention. Watch for the signs. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong. And remember, The scariest monsters aren't in movies or books. They're in the apartment next door. They're in the car that just pulled up outside. They're in the mirror you look at every morning. They're in the spaces between seconds, the corners of your vision. The moments when you're almost asleep. They're waiting, they're watching, they're hungry. And one day, when you least expect it, when your guard is down, when you're alone and vulnerable, they'll introduce themselves. Sweet dreams. Try to wake up, if you can.